Okay, our final panelist tonight, Rob Fredericks. So many of you probably don't know that we even have, I mean, maybe you do know, but we have a housing authority here in the city of Santa Barbara. You probably don't run across it much because a whole lot of their work deals with Section 8 housing. But the mandate's a little broader than that, and therefore the challenges are broader. So we thought it'd be good to bring Rob up to just kind of reflect back on what he's doing and any observations he has on what we've already heard tonight, and then we'll take a brief announcement break where you write on your questions on your cards, and then we'll resume with Q&A. So, Rob, thanks for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you coming.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. So, slide, housing in Santa Barbara. I don't have housing in Santa Barbara is great or bad. It's just housing in Santa Barbara. We have challenges here. And one thing that I've been with the Housing Authority for 24 years, and one thing that's kept me there is our mission of putting residents first and real estate second. We care about the people in our community and the people we serve. And joining the residents with housing is so important. And the importance of home is, it really is the center of our life. It's our own individual refuge where we can go and be ourselves and live and thrive. And unfortunately, many people don't have homes here in our community. It was mentioned earlier, we have 887 homeless in Santa Barbara, and that's the result of not providing enough housing. When you don't provide enough housing, you tear the fabric of your community apart, and you tear the fabric of your families apart when you don't have adequate housing. And in fact, I just read an article this morning, and some of you may have read, San Francisco had an increase of 30% homeless from their point-in-time count this year to last year. So it's a huge issue, and I wanted to frame it. It's already been mentioned, but we've had talks about, it's not just Santa Barbara, it's a national problem. And just 2 weeks ago, Harvard's Joint Center for Housing released their annual report, their annual doom and gloom report on housing. And I just want to go over a few brief slides here. And this one here just shows that home buying is out of reach for many people, and it's particularly acute on the West Coast area where the price to income ratio is just way out of whack. It's over 6 times what you earn annually, what it costs to buy a home here. In fact, it's much more on the South Coast here in Santa Barbara. And the low rent stock across the nation has shrunk since 2011. We're losing our available affordable housing stock. Jason mentioned that. There was just a development in front of the Planning Commission a couple of weeks ago, and the approval, one of the unintended consequences is we're losing some affordable housing units to build some new AUD units. So it's an issue that we recognize and we have to grapple with. And rent cost burdens are increasing all across the nation. People are spending much more than 30% of their income for rent. They're giving up basic necessities like health insurance and food and clothing just to keep a roof over their head, and many of them aren't keeping a roof over their head. Land prices, another driver of development or lack thereof, is land prices, and land prices have increased since 2012. On the West Coast in Santa Barbara County, over 50% since 2012, land prices. Some of that's a result of the AUD policy, which actually it helps spur some new development, which is needed, but it increased land prices, and it locked us as a housing authority out of developing much needed housing. And just real quick, a quick commercial on the Housing Authority. We're a separate government agency from the city of Santa Barbara. We're a standalone agency. Our tie to the city is that they formed us back in 1969. We're celebrating our 50th anniversary of providing affordable housing in the community. The city council does appoint our board of commissioners, my bosses, and they help set our policy moving forward. And I'm really proud of what we have done over the last 50 years, and I'll go over that in a moment. Again, rental stock has declined, and you can see the hot spots where it's declined most on the West Coast. And we're expected to lose another 1.2 million homes, rental affordable units by 2029, and that's deed-restricted units that are funded by the federal government that are set to go to market by 2029 if they're not preserved. So that's an issue. And in California, there's a housing deficit of affordable homes of 1.5 million units, and a total deficit of about 3 million units that we need to build. And yet we've only been, over the last 10 years, if you look at an average, we've been producing about 40,000 units a year. So you take the 40,000 into 1.5 million homes, it would take us about 37 years at this rate just to get up to even, and we need more housing now, not 37 years from now. In Santa Barbara, in the first quarter of this year, January through April, the median home price in Santa Barbara, $1.3 million, and yet our area median income is only $79,300. So we have one of the lowest affordability indexes in the country. And average rental of a two-bedroom, this is even a little bit low, $2,500. A little bit old statistic there, but considering you're not going to pay more than if you say I'm going to have an affordable rent, not paying more than 30% of my income for rent, to afford that $2,500 unit, you really need to be earning $100,000 a year. There's a lot of people that don't earn $100,000 a year, and those folks that qualify for Section 8 for rental assistance, that's 80% AMI and below. That's for a single person, that's $61,850 a year. There's a whole lot of people, millennials and otherwise, that work along State Street that don't earn even the $61,000 a year that would qualify for Section 8 housing assistance. Unfortunately, there's just not enough funding appropriated through Congress for that type of assistance. So that $100,000 translates to $8,300 a month. And what do you get? The consequences, right? You get commuters coming in and out of Santa Barbara every day from North County, South County. That's a picture of me because I'm one of those commuters that drive in from Ventura every day. So it's not good for the environment, and I'm one of those. I do drive an electric car and have solar panels, but it still is bad. It's bad. Real quick, we've as a housing authority, we've done a really admirable job of providing affordable housing in this community over the last 50 years. We have built over 1,250 units spread across 60 developments throughout the city, and we're really proud of what we've built and the character and the creating communities for people that they're proud to live in, and that's what we want to continue to do. But we know we have to do it differently. We can't continue to do what we've been doing. If you do what you always did, you're going to get what you always got. And things are changing, and we're not providing the housing that's needed for the millennials and elsewhere. So we have to change what we're doing. This is our mission, and I wanted to let you know, we've just recently changed our mission statement. You'll see in there, nowhere does it say low income. It just says affordable housing. That's because our commission recognized in our staff that we need to help the missing middle as well achieve affordable housing for them. So we changed our mission and we've expanded what we're doing. And that's just real quick, our housing stock. And it's not as much as people report in the paper. You'll hear people say, oh, the housing authority, they have 20% of the rental housing stock. No, we don't. We have 5.7%. We need more in this community. The RENA numbers, Why we need more, the regional housing needs allocation. You can see here the moderate income, the missing middle, we're not producing nearly enough. We're not producing enough in any of these categories. We need more housing, and it is a supply and demand issue. And if you're not creating enough supply and that demand's there, you're going to have that upward pressure on rents and those negative consequences that we talked about. So what we did in 2017, the commission expanded our mission to say, we can serve households up to 160% area median income. And so we did that. We changed our policy, and we're allowed to do that as a housing authority. You may say, well, you're a housing authority. How can you serve not low income? Well, under the Health and Safety Code, that's the housing authority law that we're formed under, is only 20% of our housing stock is required to be affordable. The rest, 80%, can be luxury apartments if we so desired. But if I did that, we would be going rogue, right? If we did 80%, and I think Jason would have a problem with that, as well as the rest of the city council, and I wouldn't have my job very long if we did that. So we're always going to have our core mission of serving low income, the very vulnerable populations that we do serve, homeless and veterans that need the help. But we have begun expanding, and we've done that by purchasing apartments on the open market. Laura Bodie has helped us with connecting us with some of our landlord community in the Section 8 market that are of age. The landlords have aged in place, but they care about the residents that they've served, and they don't want those their apartments to be sold on the open market and have extremely high rents. So we've purchased some apartments. This one, 2120 Oak Street, 9 units. We worked out, we gave some cash up front, and the seller carried back paper, and we're able to keep the rents low. And on turnover of those units, we're planning to serve that missing middle at this development here that's near Cottage Hospital. And Castillo Street, we did that with another local landlord. Same thing, a similar price range. And it's with the seller carryback financing at the price that we purchased it. We're able to keep the rents low for the existing tenants there so they don't lose their housing. And on turnover, we can serve that income range of the little bit higher income that need help as well, earners. So more housing is needed. You've heard it all tonight. So how do we get there? So we need to increase the housing supply, and we do that by creating multifamily housing developments downtown with bonus density and getting creative. Now, the Housing Authority has, as I mentioned, we're active developers. We're developing an 89-unit Frail Senior development on Hope Avenue. We're developing a 17-unit veterans moving from homelessness by the high school. And we just purchased a 200 North La Cumbra, 1.3 acres that we plan to develop with affordable housing that will be hopefully accessing the low-income housing tax credit program. But that funding stream is available for low income, for deep targeting low-income individuals. There's not a lot of funding out there for that missing middle. Even when you take out the land component, you still need funding to develop the missing middle housing, and you need to be able to support that with loans and whatever on a permanent basis. So it's a real difficult nut for us to crack, but we're trying that, and we said, hey, let's look at city parking lots, surface parking lots, and how we can look at utilizing that wasted airspace, right? It's wasted. Let's do something good for our community. So we took that to City Council a couple of months ago now, and we got their blessing to at least take a look and see what we could do as a prototype. And we looked at a number of different lots along the Central Business District corridor, and we felt the best site for us to try as a prototype is just outside the Central Business District corridor at the Carrillo Castillo commuter lot. You might have heard about that lot. That's where we wanted to do the tiny home development that I still think we could have done a fantastic job if we had the appropriate funding. and provided much needed housing for those that don't have homes. But we said, hey, we can't do that. Let's look at the missing middle here. Let's see what we can do. So we're looking at that site now and putting together some pro formas and doing some studies. We're turning over every stone as far as grant applications and what type of funding streams there are at the federal level and state level. There's not a lot out there for the missing middle. But we're doing our studies now, and we're going to come back to the city to report back on what's possible and what's not, and what kind of gaps there are on that. And just looking at if we did like a 59-unit development there, a mix of studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedroom townhomes, we're looking at a cost of about $17 million to do that. And yet the land is free. The land's there, but we still have that cost. We have to figure out where we could do. We figure with keeping the rents low, we can fund a permanent loan of about $9 million, but then we have that gap of multi-million-dollar gap that we have to look at. So it's just, we have to get creative and look at doing that. We have to look at not requiring, if we build units here, we're gonna say no parking. We're gonna say we're gonna do preferences for those that that work in the downtown area that agree not to own a vehicle. We've done that successfully at other developments here in Santa Barbara. Grace Village, right on State Street, 58 senior units, there's 16 parking spaces. None of the residents own a vehicle. We've shown that we don't need vehicles, and as Matt mentioned, millennials don't need vehicles. They're willing to give up their vehicles as long as there's other multimodal points of transportation that they can access. So that's what we need to look at. We need to be creative. We need to look at tiny homes, manufactured homes that can be done right and done correctly, and create a living environment that works for people. So that's all I have. I did want to mention another event that we're planning for October, and that's October 19th is Housing Santa Barbara Day. We held our first Housing Santa Barbara Day last October, which is National Housing America Month. And we're going to hold it in De La Guerra Plaza, and we're bringing together all the different housing providers and service providers, and we're going to have tiny homes on display. We're going to have our staff there to help people apply for housing and give them different options. So if you're available Saturday, October 19th, come on out to De La Guerra Plaza. It should be fun. So that's all I have. Thank you.